Welcome back to the Exploring Life channel. If you've stumbled upon this channel without actively searching for it, it's not a coincidence. It's how the universe opens your mind to new perspectives. In this episode, we'll continue our discussion on manipulation, building upon what we discussed in the previous episode. Yesterday, we talked about one manipulative technique called repetition. In this episode, we will explore another technique known as intermittent reinforcement. Let's dive right in. Now imagine yourself as a man with a date planned with a beautiful woman named Emily. Today marks your 3-month anniversary. You sit together with Emily in a corner of the restaurant she booked to celebrate this special occasion. Tonight, you see Emily looking stunning and graceful, absolutely perfect. As you're captivated by her beauty, you suddenly notice something unusual on her left eyelid, and her makeup in that area looks thicker. Seeing this unusual sight, you naturally ask, "Honey, what happened to your eyelid? Are you okay?" Without hesitation, Emily confesses and tells you about her affair behind your back. She goes into detail about her rekindled romance with her ex-boyfriend, who even physically assaulted her. What started as a beautiful evening suddenly turns bitter. This story is the experience of our friend. Let's call him John. John explains the details of what Emily told him at that time. Emily explains, "Before we got together, I was involved with someone named Mike. We dated for 5 years, and I knew he wasn't the right person for me. In fact, back when he was angry, he would often become physically abusive. Yesterday, I told Mike that I was with you now and asked him not to interfere with us anymore. He agreed and asked me for one last kiss. We kissed briefly, around 2 minutes, and without me realizing it, I got trapped with him again. And suddenly, the next day, he got angry and assaulted me again." So, from Emily's story, it's clear that she got entangled in Mike's manipulation. Mike succeeded in ensnaring Emily in his love, affection, and attention. Initially, Emily almost managed to break free from Mike, but due to Mike's actions, she ended up becoming a love slave again. What action was that? Yes, it was the last kiss Mike asked for, which rekindled Emily's emotions. With this, once again, Emily was under Mike's control. John also thought like us. He found it hard to believe that Emily could break free from Mike. This was reinforced by Emily's story about the restaurant where they sat. This restaurant was Mike's favorite. Without much thought, John decided to end his relationship with Emily. A few years later, John accidentally ran into Emily again. Emily had tried to free herself from Mike's influence. Over the years, Emily still couldn't break free from Mike. She explained that the only way she thought would work was to move to another city. Ultimately, John could only pray that everything would go smoothly. However, if before Emily moved to another city, Mike met Emily again, she would surely cancel her plans to move and return to Mike. Why could Emily be like that? Long before I heard John's story, I had experienced similar situations, whether from my partner, friends, or family. Well, here's the explanation, friends. Before that, I'll explain a psychological experiment involving pigeons. It might sound strange, but bear with me. After I explain, you'll understand. Because in this story, there's an explanation about human nature. As we learned yesterday, by understanding this basic nature and mastering it, a manipulator can carry out their actions. Imagine a cage with a pigeon inside. In the cage, there's a small piece of metal. Every time the pigeon pecks at this small piece of metal, the researcher gives it its favorite food. Since all animals like food, we can associate the food the pigeon likes with a reward or reinforcement for its behavior of pecking the metal. You might think that the more often the researcher gives the pigeon food through the metal, the more the pigeon will peck at it, right? The answer is no, my friends. The results of the experiment are as follows. First, when the pigeon is rewarded for pecking the metal, it will stop pecking it. This is surprising. So, the more often the reinforcement is given, the more the pigeon stops pecking the metal. Second, When the pigeon is consistently rewarded every time it pecks the metal, it will occasionally peck it. This was my mistake earlier. The first scenario is when there's no reinforcement, the pigeon stops pecking, and the second is when there's reinforcement, it occasionally pecks it. So, when there's no reinforcement for a behavior, the pigeon will stop performing it. Third, the last and most crucial point in our discussion today is that when the researcher gives intermittent reinforcement, sometimes providing food and sometimes not, the pigeon will actually peck at the metal more frequently and intensely. Eventually, the experiment results show that intermittent reinforcement, giving rewards or reinforcement sporadically, is the most effective method for shaping the pigeon's behavior as desired by the researcher. Now, I want you to imagine how this experiment relates to the case of Emily and Mike. When you compare the pigeon story with the love story between Emily and Mike, you'll find similarities or correlations. In reality, we are similar to animals in this aspect. Providing intermittent reinforcement to shape behavior in pigeons can also be applied to us, humans. We tend to overlook reinforcement because we think that maybe John is genuinely a good person. And this is a fact. As humans, we respond better to people who consistently treat us well. This is very much like Emily, John, and Mike's situation. Emily likes John, and she knows that John will always treat her well. John showers Emily with reinforcement as if she were a queen. And this is where Emily believes that John is the best for her. In essence, when we always treat others well, we are taken for granted. This is a proven fact. Many social life tips suggest that we should maintain a certain level of aloofness towards everyone all the time to avoid being taken for granted. In short, humans have a fundamental nature of undervaluing what they can have at any time. The results of the pigeon experiment shed light on human nature, which is often exploited by manipulators. Intermittent reinforcement is how manipulators generate desire in their targets for something they cannot fully possess. Sometimes the target will go to great lengths to obtain it, just like the love story between Emily and Mike. Some of us have experienced situations where we unintentionally provide or receive intermittent reinforcement. That's why we must be cautious when interacting with the opposite sex. No matter how much we sacrifice, there will always be one or two things we cannot have. And that's what makes us want it even more. Because human nature is always wanting what they don't have. Manipulators can exploit this nature by providing intermittent reinforcement. They can make the target feel that they can never fully have what they desire. The target can't let go of this desire, and the manipulator knows when to provide reinforcement and when to withhold it. In this way, the target feels they can't have what the manipulator offers, and this actually makes them want it more. Someone using manipulation can master and exploit this fundamental nature, giving them great control over their target. By providing intermittent reinforcement, a manipulator can arouse desire in their target for something they cannot fully possess. This is one of the effective tactics of manipulation. So there are two stages typically used by manipulators to provide intermittent reinforcement to their targets. First, they establish a pattern of reinforcement by giving the target what they desire. Second, once this pattern is established, they stop providing reinforcement. This is where the target will do anything to get that reinforcement. Manipulators commonly use offering benefits like money, desired items, or other forms of reinforcement. Usually, manipulators also behave very well towards their target at the beginning, while weakening the target's defenses and gathering information that can be used for reinforcement. The reinforcement provided typically includes money, position, praise, comfort, or other ways that fulfill the target's ego desires. This includes feelings of pride, greed, and jealousy, which are inherent human traits. So, with a little understanding of intermittent reinforcement, we can begin to understand why someone might stay in a seemingly messy or pressure-filled relationship. Even though it doesn't make logical sense, maybe some of you are currently experiencing difficult relationships. If so, please share your stories in the comments section, and I'll try to provide solutions. That's it for today's material on manipulation. For those who have experienced manipulation or have been manipulators, please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for today, and may we always stay healthy. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this channel.